Welcome to Season 4 of the Knack for Business podcast.
Question for the audience. How do you automate customer conversations with AI without losing trust, control, or the human touch? Fod will reveal how KarmaFlow.ai builds autonomous multi-channel AI agents that just don't reply. They think, adapt, and build real relationships. He'll break down how to blend empathy with automation, how to scale conversations without sacrificing authenticity, and how to govern AI so it stays ethical, compliant, and safe. Our guest today is Fod Maya from KarmaFlow.ai. He's the co-founder and CEO of KarmaFlow, and it's an Ottawa-based company developing multi-channel AI agents designed for research-grade reasoning and governance. A graduate of MIT in data science, Fod combines a deep understanding of marketing strategy with applied AI design to help organizations automate communication while preserving authenticity and empathy. He has led multi-million-dollar digital transformations and now advocates for ethical, autonomous AI systems that deliver real-world business impact. Fod, welcome today. Welcome here. And do you have a favorite quote or saying you'd like to share with us, sir?
Thank you so much, Bernie, for having me. Favorite quote would be a very common one. We all know the perfection is the enemy of good enough. Yeah, that's my motto in life. I often get too deep into things and try to perfect things, but I have to remind myself. And so I think that's a good one for me to keep in front of me always. And yeah.
So, what personal experience convinced you that AI can go beyond chatbots? Actually make help build a relationship between two parties, whether it's a business to business or business to customer.
One of the things that just happened by coincidence over the last decade and a half, not that I wanted to get into it, is as engineering conversation, which is the intersection of marketing and sales, leading those kind of initiatives. And that led to often engineering digital conversations. And if we look at bot-driven conversations for the last 10 years, we had horrible experiences. And yet, for addressing scalability and so forth, certain solutions were in place and they were doing their job, but the experience was not great. They were robotic and often not, human-like. But so as generative AI evolved very fast, we found that reasoning with enhanced context and enough training, we could imitate empathy. And now I wouldn't say that AI is sentient and we can instill real empathy. That's not there yet. However, the empathy could be reflected through training, and that changes the interactions a little bit, along with other capabilities, which is understanding complex context. Traditionally, again, chatbots, it would be a decision tree, this or that or this or that kind of things. But imagine now, you don't have to imagine, you have the experience already experiencing with AI. It understands your intentions more than one at a time. It can follow through, especially in agentic platform, that, okay, we started with this conversation, but our overall goal is this. Let's continue. Just like us, we have an overall agenda, and in between that bigger goal, we have all these other micro goals that we have to go through. And these kind of abilities with human-like reasoning and the access to tools that you could orchestrate to this reasoning with your business tools, like your telephone, your knowledge base, your CRM. And of course, then comes the question of hallucination. And we all know the problems, how things can go totally off. And that's what we have been working on profoundly, that how can we leverage all this reasoning, autonomous power, but at the same time have complete governance, complete controllability, manageability. And I think we've been doing a very good job. And only recently we have started bringing our solutions to real world, and we have seen great results. Customers like CAA, or general contractors, they have put our agents in very critical interactions places. So, for example, our general contractors, they're using our AI agents to nurture customers, moving them from early stage intent to sales qualified ready leads, and moving them towards booking appointment. And it's not just there, but continuing throughout the life cycle of the lead journey, augmenting staffs and also collaborating with staffs, making sure that things happen in between. So the possibilities, I think, are immense, and we have been able to see it a long time, and hence we were passionate, and then we continued our work, and that's what brings us to where we are. That now we can really make a difference in terms of making robots more human in certain roles where humans are more robotic than the robots themselves, which is customer experience. Imagine your top sales, customer experience, support agent with all those skills and qualities combined into one around the clock in front of your customers, reasoning, engaging, nurturing. And when you need them to reach out to you for whatever business logic, reasoning you have, you can design them to do so. Now, again, going back to the immense, the big elephant, the hallucinations and all those possibilities. And that's where our creativity really shines as well. We've designed this entire network of agents over agents, manager agents, review agents, just like we do in a real world, Barney. You have a team of your editors, podcast editors, and then you also have this final say, right? Cut this here, cut that here. You have different agents, team members working symbiotically, making sure that those compliances are met. If not, there are remedies and workflows, how to rectify them, or what's the workflow from there, and so on. So it's like a digital twin, but cognitive AI agents and humans, and it's a collaborative workplace.
So it sounds like the phone tree has evolved a lot from the press one and having someone at the other end going heavy sigh as they're in the fifth button press. And you talked about AI, and you've mentioned a couple of really interesting things in the process of your design. One is that you have an AI watching the AI and tweaking the process. And you also mentioned about having empathy. Does the empathy learn based on other people's real world experiences, or is it learned on the customer profile? If the customer has had a previous contact through the bot and had outcome results, where it goes, okay, this person, it's like getting a custom suit, right? Not one size fits all. So, if the person happens to be a senior citizen and they're calling the Canadian Automobiles Association, CAA, and they're going, my car, tow it, versus, some youngster, and I say youngster only for the fact that, age is relative, but like somebody in their 20-something going, flat tire, and I'm out in the boonies and I don't have a spare because it doesn't come with the car anymore. I need a tow. Does it figure that out and sort it through? And then one last question I'm going to embed in there, because there's like three parts of this. How do you ensure that your bots, because that final check, like the editor, it's like, that's good, that's not so good, and a tweak. So how do you make sure that you're on track and you made that connection you need to make?
These are great three questions. Now, please bring me to track if I go off track. The first question in terms of empathy. Now, Bernie, in most times, not always, I would say empathy is a learned skill. When one gets trained for support center, call center, they are given framework, training, even exercises as role play before they actually go into the field. Very similar way, every company also has very specific guidelines how to handle this kind of scenarios. Again, maybe in an instructive framework, not explicitly if this then that. Our agents, you give them similar framework, how you perceive the empathy to be practiced. Again, not very explicitly, but in a framework kind of instruction way, just like you would if you'd hire me and you tell Fuad, this is our audience, these are our segments, be aware and be attentive, listen to them. They may have these common problems, heads up. And our AI agents would learn very fast, relatively faster than many of us from fewer examples and fewer lines of prompts. And they will act and in terms of multimodality signals, as you mentioned and given some examples, we take different cues, and this all happens through orchestration, of course, through context of how is the caller feeling at that moment. Context meaning the words is one. What is the audio signals like? There are specific models that are assessing, deciding the level of anxiousness or level of stress. There's a scoring system in orchestration that decides and detects and continuously feeds. And based on that, the agent that's interacting slows down or anticipates different cues and so forth, those real-time feedbacks and the training that you have given in the original deterministic kind of knowledge and training. In terms of the third question, if I remember right, agents overlooking the agents, and so there are multiple philosophy and solutions. So one is real-time feedback that could correct the course immediately in the same session. And there are also feedback that we use in batches that could correct or optimize or enhance overall trends systems. So the review agents, there is a team of agents that have also a very specific sets of angles of observability that they observe and report to other managers. Some report immediately to the main agent, hey, slow down, right? Hey, I think I also found I did some web search on this particular issue. There's a specific context that may be relevant to your conversation that's ongoing right now. So so there's this multi-approach in the orchestration it's like an army of intelligence you have surrounding your principal, the best agent interacting with your customer.
Excellent. The automation has several layers around it. How do you define true autonomous reasoning then? Is it these components coming together and layering on top and it's like self-correcting? As you know, like if you're driving one of the new electric cars, whose manufacturer shall be unnamed at this point in time, you can have your hands off the wheel. The car I drive is not an electric one. I can do that too, but it gets very touchy. It goes up. You haven't touched the steering wheel for the last 2 minutes. We're going to brake and stop you and pull you over to the side of the road. Is it that type of thing where it gathers information and then operates? And when you say autonomous, how autonomous is autonomous then? Is it in the moment? Is it a time-based thing, or is it fire and forget?
As you said it, just like real employees, you can have one staff that say, these are your boundaries. Anything beyond that, you pause, reach out to me, find out what I have to say, and wait for my decision. And then you'll proceed. So you set the boundaries where their capabilities of decision making ends. And what are, again, there could be unknown unknowns, and based on your boundaries, it will decide, even for those unknown unknowns, what is the best course of action. Now, given that their reasoning is human-like reasoning, you can expect the most human-like outcome from those decisions. You can definitely set hard boundaries that I don't want you to go. Like, don't even think. Stop thinking after that, right? You're no longer a human after that particular event. So there's absolute controllability in terms of how autonomous you want them to be. So for example, email channels, if a customer, let's say, comes up with something that never been seen before, and your instruction as per your company policy is not to act for unknown stuff, but reach out to your manager. It'll do that. Or if your instruction is do at your best, given all the other best, all the logics, reasoning, and playbook, you have to take a decision, but also alert internally that you have taken decision that was somewhat within your boundaries or you were not as confident and so forth. So yeah, just like in the real world, Bernie, you'd set your rules for your business, for your employees, and you do that, and you'll that's what they'll do for you.
That's interesting. At least I won't worry about getting a marriage proposal quite by accident from a bot then. So keeping things safe. How do you keep them safe? Like, how do you know that? Because sometimes when you test the boundaries, like when you have kids, AI is starting to sound like having a human being. And like if you think of kids, they're continuously learning, and every once in a while you gotta push the boundaries, right? And they're like, Dad, does this bother you? Oh no, not at all. So, whoa. How do you find that before it goes too far, or it's kind of came very close to the edge, where whether it's due to a hallucination, where it says, "Well, take 3 Tylenols, you'll be fine in the morning." That's not what it's supposed to do.
Absolutely, human has to be in the loop, therefore, and that's why you have to have every observability in terms of what are the activities they're doing. Again, if you are the manager responsible for 5 team members, you want to know about their whereabouts, what they're doing, what tickets they have closed, have they violated any policy of the company? Did they give 80% discount to their family and friends that they're not supposed to? And you may have some triggers that you already know that if should this go or happen, let me know. And some are unknown, right? Maybe you also leave that onto the reasoning that something that I haven't specified, but you decide if I should know, also let me know. But that's in terms of alerts, but you also want to have the ability of scanning everything at your own demand. Okay, no, now I need to go back and see what happened in this case, that case. And then that's where the platform comes handy versus ChatGPT and every other business platform, AI platform will or should give you that ability of auditing your stuffs, your AI agents activities in details.
So, if you're the manager, then would it behoove you then, again, going back to humans you would normally engage, that you would do either weekly, quarterly, monthly reviews of the system, and much like you do a performance appraisal. In this case, obviously, you're not worried about human fatigue because the AI system can keep going. Or is there fatigue that you can come across in that space?
It's not as so in the initial phase, it'd be a different frequency and recency of more controlled and analysis and closer eye than when you have certain scoring that indicates after you have achieved a more reliable and consistent results outcomes, then you can probably reduce your check and rely on alert system more based on that reasoning system. But typically what we see first 2 weeks, 4 weeks, this heavy monitoring. Again, when you hire new employees. After that, maybe you just set a camera. You're no longer asking them to shadow you or you're not shadowing them. And the camera indications is good enough, right? So it's a very similar process. We have often seen that managers spend in the first 2 weeks over 2 hours a day, different parts of the day combined to, let's say, see, okay, how fast can I optimize? What are the conversation outcomes? What are the initial trends that I can immediately enhance and so forth? After the 2 weeks, we see a very nice draw in terms of hands-on managing, because by that time they have covered almost all kinds of trends. And again, depending on the volume of interactions they produce by that time. But absolutely, there's this ongoing monitoring that could be a little bit more systematic routine, plus a little bit of hybrid random checks. And in the beginning, it's more hands-on. Yes.
So KarmaFlow right now is providing agents for businesses. So if I'm a business going, hey, I've got all this stuff that I'm doing. Not so much I'm looking to peel away my my workforce, but maybe I can make things more error proof and more provide better flow around so that I can position my human assets into the right position, facing at the right time versus sitting back there crunching numbers. How do you fit that in? How does Karma Flow come in and go, okay, we can help you, whether it's an email, text messaging, or it's answering the phone.
You just said it, man. You're absolutely right. My co-founder and I, Justin, for example, after having our solution, we didn't eliminate any of us. However, I mean, in terms of augmentation, it's huge. So, for example, Barney, let's say you're prospecting. When I used to prospect uh, with our known workflows, it would take me 2 to 3 hours if I wanted to do qualitative prospecting, researching a little bit on the web, researching on the Reddit a little bit, depending on the target audience and so forth, where they are looking at their LinkedIn, a little bit of stalking, and then finally, write a very relevant, intimate business email. But if I did that full time, I'd be able to do 4 or 5 or three to five max a day. Given the prospecting, as you know, conversion rate, I'll probably get 5 or 6 meetings per year with that speed, right? So hence, this is an example where you can put an AI agent, a research AI agent, give it, let's say, your entire leads, 5,000 leads that you have prospects, could bring it or from another, whatever's your prospect list, and you can ask it, what, where you're burning, and you're going to go and use whatever tools you have, our own CRM, your capability of doing web search, LinkedIn search, these, that, and come up with intel that will help you to craft an amazing 3 to 5 lines email that really showcases, you have done your job research and build rapport and be very specific and your goal is to create a meeting. It'll do the same amount of effort that you and I would do for that qualitative, but it will do that at scale. So within probably 1 hour, it'd be done its job. And instead of getting those 5 meetings per year, I'll probably be getting that, so that's a big difference, augmentation. And the other thing, one of our customer, for example, auto general contractors, or even CAA or any of them, if you look at before, the challenges were that how do I get someone with all the expertise, knowledge, and services, product expertise, who knows how to use our CRM and so forth, answer the call and serve our customer and dispatch someone if someone is available. So now AI could do that around the clock while your real experts could be, doing real things. And the AI dispatchers, service coordinators could be happily, without any, fatigue, serving, delighting your customers around the clock, letting them know where your field agents are, how far they are. They have context. Imagine they have access to your CRM that shows where your field workers are. If they're stuck at a signal light, or if there's an accident, lane closure, they're going to be late 5 minutes in taking new customers, right? And all those things around the clock.
I'm getting the picture of all the different utilities that can happen. Where do companies kind of shoot themselves in the foot, so to speak, when they're looking at AI and going, okay, I'm going to use AI, right? And I have sitting next to me a device from the Google Planet, and if I say its name, it'll come alive, and that's AI, right? But that's it'd be a mistake to assume that that's going to help me out a lot. And I know that the information that it captures is not private and it's actually public. And not public as in like, you know, my neighbor down the road won't be able to listen to me, but it's public as in it's now in the cloud outside of my control. When you have clients like Ottawa General Contracting or CAA, how do you keep the information tight? And then how do I, where, if they were to do this by themselves 5 years ago, where would they have had an issue where they would have had a faux pas in bringing it out and making it work well for them for themselves?
Security is a definitely great area, and we've seen tremendous amount of vulnerability. People have done mistakes and not following the right recipe for security and so forth. Now, remedies are there. In terms of data security, if we look at that, you have different business plans and availability and tiers. So if your defense, for example, you'd want your computing data, everything to stay inside your room, inside a building. So that's definitely possible. It just, your investment needs to be much higher because of hardware and so forth. Now, for businesses like myself, you, and OGC, it happens through an API. So your data is not exposed to the public. Absolutely not. Your data is also not used to train the general foundational models. For customers in the healthcare and other a little bit higher security in the financial areas, there are different tiers of BA you can do and different practice for security to keep data tight. But you can also bring a lot of these capabilities in-house in your building these days with not so much of investment. So I think that challenge is a real challenge and used to be a bigger challenge, but becoming lesser and lesser of an issue.
So the other thing I understand about AI, and this is more when I'm sitting there going, I'm going to ask a question of it. And it's your customers, when they call, it's set up that they don't really have to build out a prompt. Do the businesses have to be really crafty at creating a prompt, or can they be lazy about it? Or is there some sort of prompt surgery on the go there that it spins the dial better than anything else?
So yes and no. They don't have to be scientists in prompt engineering. But think of it this way. If your business well structured, hiring and training new employees, if you can give them resources, workflows, a table of content and a cheat sheet, all these different things, it'll help them. Uh, the more structured you are. And similarly, when you hire AI agents, if you can give them your documentation, your policy, resources, versus if one document conflicts the other document, just like again in the real world, your new employee would be confused. What do I do? Which one supersedes which, right? So from that perspective, yes, you will have to have a CRM. You have to have your policies, your to do's and don'ts, all those things. If you don't, then it's a time to structure those. And yes, but to go back, do you have to have a course done in prompt engineering? No, you don't. It's more like you giving the right resources and are they conflict free? Now, are they consumable by a reasonable IQ level person? Then yes, our AI agents would be able to understand those and use those.
So when you're building a system, and this is, I think this would be true for anybody in any system, whether it's AI, whether it's, even if you're a teacher, right? Just you're viewing information to a student population. How do you limit bias? Or if there is bias, that it's not layered in? Because sometimes I've heard people talk about bias, and I'm sitting there going, there's bias? And you kind of looking at it, it's like, where? Like, how? And then later on says, well, it's like 3 layers down if you understand the reasoning that brought you to this point. Okay, now I get it. How do you mitigate or work with it?
And I think that's the real problem, even till this day, especially with some of the vendors and other vendors. So, for example, OpenAI would be like, that's a great idea. And then you ask, and then you tell it, are you sure? Can you review that statement without any bias? Then it'll have another statement. Versus, let's say, Claude, it'll probably be a little bit more critical of your ideas than always clapping your ideas no matter what. Other kinds of faith-based hallucination and there are different kinds of hallucinations that it gets victim.
No, I
But
didn't know that.
as-
I did not know the pink elephants and over there. Okay, got it.
there are certain techniques experts use, and then those techniques will change and they're very fluid. So one of them is that I often suggest is a prompt is assess cognitive distortion for your, whatever you are outcoming. And then it actually becomes very biasless and it does a distortion kind of analysis and then it gives you the right fact based. And other simpler techniques would work is that, adding things in the prompt itself, in the original prompt, always analyze or give your answers based on evidence and facts and so forth. Then it has lesser creativity of going, making up things. But I think the idea that we should all keep in mind, yes, become familiar with some of the techniques, experiments, see what works for you, what doesn't. But also keep in mind that these are changing fast. The context size, the computing, they're enhancing the context window, for example, if you look at a few years ago versus now, that's directly co-relevant to hallucinations and so forth. And that's enhancing. So what we experience today, in 3 months, that would be probably better or changed in different ways. So yeah, if that answered your question.
It does. It does. So when a business looks at bringing AI in, they have to, everything has a cost. Either it's time or money or both, right? And how do you know that you made the right investment? Like, do you see an immediate change? Do you see immediate dollars? Do you see immediate savings in labor? Or is it something there's a bit of a curve and then, it's is it like a month out? Is it 2 months out? Is it a year out that you'll start noticing impact, both time and money realized? So, like if you like your example of doing research, do 5 calls a year. Unless, of course, those 5 calls generate a lot of revenue. But if each of them generates a chocolate bar of revenue, that's not so healthy, right? Is that something that you would expect or a business would expect to see a dramatic change instant, or is it kind of a curved improvement over time?
I think, honest, the capabilities of AI, not just KarmaFlow overall for businesses, are as big as fire and electricity. We're really going through really a huge, I would say, something that we are privileged to see and living through this time. It is a pretty big thing. It just changed the world forever. The impact is going to be tremendous. So for businesses, I think they should be, and the assessment is, as you said, it's somewhat actually, it's not very complex. It's binary. It's where am I stuck now? And could AI reliably augment or enhance that immediately? Typically, that translates into immediate revenue if you can solve that reliably. So, for example, for many businesses, for consultative businesses who notice that from the first initial consultation to handing out a potential draft contract for collaboration takes weeks. If there's absolutely no compromise and that could be compressed from weeks to 10 minutes, that has $1 million value, right? Or more or less. But so things like that, you could probably ask yourself ignore the human and AI part. Just ask as simply as, where am I stuck? What could completely transform my business? And then ask the next question, could AI solve that, scale that? And then list 10 things like that. And then do a check mark if AI can and pick those.
So, kind of a wrap up question: if you had an AI bot, would you give it a personality? Would you make it quirky, funny? Would you make it a Don Rickles? And if you don't know who Don Rickles is, that's okay. But he may not be the ideal customer service rep. type of persona. You have to kind of Google or Robin Williams, right? Zany, right? Most people know who Robin Williams is.
Yes.
Do you recommend a certain persona or just congenial?
Well, I think up until now, we have tried the concept of personalization only through understanding segmentation. The real world, the real meaning of personalization could never be achieved because we didn't have abundance of human resource, the human reasoning and knowledge and expertise and understanding and connecting of different nodes with edges, and it simply wasn't possible at scale. Um, and that is possible now with AI. You can truly personalize the experience. You can truly have a personality that your human, I don't know what's the right word, let's say owner for the fun purpose, your human owner really like. It doesn't have to be the same, but it's something that clicks. And if the agent understands what clicks, what kind of personality should they adopt that really clicks with their human owner, and they slowly, gradually also evolve as they evolve and always anticipate. Absolutely. And I think this is that time. And that's what ChatGPT is trying to do right now. As you interact with it over time, months, years, you are truly going to have an assistant that is very unique to you versus, someone starting a new account. It's very cold. So that's already out in the play in terms of having an assistant with a personality that's dynamic, that's fluid.
Response.
So would I give it? I mean, yeah. If I can have an executive AI assistant, which I do, and I want it to interact exactly, in some ways that I prefer better, in other ways, yeah, absolutely.
If
How about
someone,
you, Barney?
at the end of the day, I like the adaptive piece because if the person is all fine, if they're more prim and proper, it's more synchronous to their persona. Yeah, odds are you'll probably have a better flow. And if that's what they're anticipating as, they would get.
Well, I'll go back to those real world, maybe Friday meetings with managers or early week meetings. Things go. There are some performance KPIs. There's some collaborative team, relationship KPIs. The manager looks explicitly, implicitly. Then they have some suggestions, advices, guidance, and based on those, you have some new KPIs that you track. Some that you expose to your staff, some you keep it to yourself and self-assess. Exactly right. So I think when you have AI agents that you operate and you interact, you collaborate, you want them to portray and reflect certain things as per your thinking and your vision. So yeah.
So to wrap us up, how do folks get a hold of you? How do they find you and are you just Canada, North America, global?
Well, on LinkedIn, I'm always there. You'll always see me green there. So message me. I'll be there. And on our website, it will be just through our agents. Just let them know you want to talk to Fuad and they'll direct you. Other than phones, everywhere. I will be everywhere, but mostly through LinkedIn. I think, Barney, you and I often talk on LinkedIn as well. I'm very active. Just happens to be a platform I stuck with.
Fuad, I want to say thank you for taking the time today to have a chat with us about the KarmaFlow.ai and the potentials behind being of service to a business and us to you, the Knack for Business listeners. If at the end of the day you're looking to integrate AI into your workplace, reach out to Fuad. If you have clunky, chunky chatbots and you're going, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Reach out to him. He can help you out.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVISIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter u.ca, or his website, motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert. Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host. Jovan Strika from At Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space. Then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner, and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer. Please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.